Only Jasper seemed unaffected by the invisible pressure. He looked around in confusion, unsure why everyone else had suddenly become immobile. At that very moment, Mateo and Lion stepped into view. Their faces were blank and emotionless, yet their eyes burned with dangerous bloodlust. Valerio quickly realized what had happened. Clenching his teeth, he understood that Zoe had most likely taken control of their minds. A grim realization dawned on him. The demon had purposely allowed him to escape earlier so she could weaken him later and seize the final copy he carried. Suddenly, Mateo raised his bow and released an arrow that shot straight toward Viven. Valerio shouted in panic as he desperately tried to reach his sister before the arrow struck. In a desperate move, he stabbed his own hand with his vines, using the sharp pain to break free from Zol's spiritual suppression. The moment he regained control, he dashed sideways at incredible speed and shoved Viven out of the arrow's path. He shielded her with his own body as the arrow sliced through the air past them. Afterward, he quickly turned toward his sister, asking anxiously if she had been injured. Viven had no idea that during the chaos, her brother had secretly hidden the vial deep inside his robe. Nearby, Jasper suddenly cried out loudly as he saw a lion advancing toward the rooster with a raised weapon. Because of the overwhelming hypnosis controlling the battlefield, the rooster found himself unable to move even slightly. Inwardly cursing his bad luck, the rooster remained frozen in place while Lion's blade swung toward him. Just when it seemed certain that the king of roosters was about to meet his end, a bun suddenly flew through the air and smacked Lion squarely on the head. Lion staggered in confusion from the strange attack. Taking advantage of the moment, Isaac, who had been hiding inside the rooster's necklace, quickly threw a cloth over Lion's eyes and blinded him. Isaac immediately shouted for Jasper to tie Lion up. Meanwhile, Mateo, still under Zol's control, lifted his bow again and aimed directly at the group. The rooster and Levi stood ready, waiting for Mateo to approach. However, Mateo calmly prepared another arrow, clearly ready to fire again. At that critical moment, Isaac hurled a frying pan across the room, striking Mateo on the head and knocking him flat to the ground. Soon after, Zol's gloomy voice echoed through the air again, expressing her irritation at having underestimated these humans. Suddenly, two thin red threads flashed into the corridor from outside. The moment the rooster saw them, he remembered the unbearable pain those injections once caused him. One of the red threads shot directly toward Viven and Valerio with frightening speed. Valerio immediately recognized the attack. It was a materialized spirit thread capable of directly injuring a person's soul. Enduring the intense pain it caused, Valerio summoned his demonic vines and forced them to shield his sister from the attack. Viven watched in horror as thick vines burst violently from the ground around them. Through clenched teeth, Valerio quickly explained that he intended to use the vines to safely free her from the demon's control. The realization filled Viven with dread. She understood just how dangerous the risk her brother was taking truly was. Suddenly, a massive vine erupted from beneath the ground and wrapped around Viven, lifting her high into the air. To her surprise, the surface of the vine felt strangely soft and gentle rather than rough or painful. At that moment, Viven couldn't help but question everything she thought she knew. Maybe her brother wasn't as cold and heartless as she had once believed. Suddenly, without the slightest warning, a cold hand appeared from the shadows and clamped tightly around Viven's throat, lifting her slightly off the ground. The one holding her was Zoe. With a cruel smile, she stared directly at Valerio and mockingly pointed out that even someone like him had a person he desperately wanted to protect. Valerio could only watch in horror as the demon toyed with his sister as if she were nothing more than a helpless object. His voice trembled with fury as he shouted at Zoe, ordering her to release Viven immediately. Zoe merely scoffed at his demand. With a careless motion, she threw the girl violently to the ground and stared down at her with cold contempt. Valerio rushed forward in panic, his body trembling with a mixture of rage, helplessness, and desperate fear for his sister. Zoe tilted her head slightly and asked him in a calm but chilling voice whether he wanted to experience the unbearable grief of losing someone he loved. Before Valerio could even react, the demon moved her hand in a swift and brutal motion, slicing off the girl's head in a single strike. Valerio stood there in stunned disbelief, forced to watch the horrifying scene unfold right before his eyes. Yet in the next moment, something strange happened. His entire body suddenly felt stiff and immobile, as though time itself had frozen around him. At that instant, an invisible bond seemed to awaken between him and his sister, a deep connection tied directly to their hearts. Not far away, Jasper was shaking uncontrollably with fear. He tried to call out to Levi for help, but a woman's hand suddenly tightened around his throat, cutting off his voice. Everyone else, including Levi, had already been trapped inside a powerful spiritual illusion created by Zoe. Levi remained imprisoned within the illusion, his spirit pushed to the brink of collapse. Even in such a desperate moment, he could only rely on the mysterious system to save him. The system found itself with almost no options left. Zoe's demonic spiritual power could only affect those whose spirits had already awakened, leaving the system with only one final choice. It announced that after 10 seconds, it would forcibly shut down the spiritual world, including the host's consciousness. The system itself would temporarily take over the body, transforming into another consciousness and entering a berserk combat mode. However, when the 10-second countdown ended, Levi's eyes suddenly opened on their own. His irises turned a mysterious golden color. This completely shattered the system's expectations, because it realized another hidden consciousness had awakened inside Levi's body, one it had never detected before. The system angrily cursed as this unknown consciousness seized control of Levi's body from it and rushed straight toward Jasper, who was still being strangled by Zoe. Levi's fist shot forward without hesitation, smashing directly into the demon's face with terrifying force. Seeing the white-haired figure relentlessly attacking the demon, Jasper anxiously shouted and asked if that person was really Levi. When Levi heard his name, those cold golden eyes slowly turned toward Jasper. The sight terrified him so much that Jasper screamed, convinced that the person before him was no longer Levi. As Levi extended a hand toward him, Jasper trembled in fear and tightly shut his eyes, bracing himself for pain. But the pain never came. Instead, he felt a gentle hand softly patting his head. The golden-eyed man looked at him with unexpected warmth and quietly told the boy to protect himself. The system watched all of this in total confusion. It seemed that Jasper was somehow connected to all of this. The system began questioning the boy's true identity. Despite its vast knowledge, it had no information about Jasper at all, leaving his origins completely mysterious. At that moment, the demon suddenly lashed out, kicking violently toward the two of them. Jasper, still confused and unaware of the danger approaching, noticed nothing at all. Before the attack could land, Levi moved with incredible speed. In one swift motion, he lifted Jasper onto his shoulder and dodged the strike. Standing behind Levi, Jasper hesitantly asked who this person really was, because the aura around him felt completely unfamiliar. Levi turned his head slightly and gave a strange, cryptic reply that only made Jasper even more confused, forcing him to ask the question again. Puzzled, Jasper repeated the question once more. Levi's vague words only deepened the mystery. He admitted that he didn't truly know who he was either, but he knew one thing for certain. The boy before him was Jasper. Seeing that Jasper still doubted him, Levi calmly confirmed it again, saying that because the boy was Jasper, he would protect him. A strange instinct inside this unfamiliar Levi seemed to guide his actions, pushing him to protect the child without hesitation. Zoe stared at Levi suspiciously, quickly realizing that the current state of this human was completely different from before. Even her powerful spiritual suppression could no longer restrain him. A strong sense of danger rose in her heart. Her instincts told her that this man now posed a real threat to her life. Without warning, Levi burst forward like a flash of lightning and rushed straight toward Zoe. Zoe was completely shocked as she watched him charge at her. His speed was so terrifying that even her spiritual perception struggled to track him. Desperate, she gritted her teeth and pushed the giant ant beside her forward as a sacrifice. Levi's punch shattered the giant ant's body into countless fragments, revealing it to be nothing more than Zoe's spiritual avatar. Without slowing down, Levi immediately shifted direction and lunged toward Zoe again. Watching him approach, Zoe felt a wave of horror. The man's speed and strength had grown to an unbelievable level. The defensive shield she hastily created simply could not withstand Levi's terrifying attack. The shield shattered instantly, and the impact sent her entire body crashing violently into the ground. Fortunately, she managed to block most of the damage with her spiritual power, leaving her injured but not fatally so. Even so, Zoe realized with growing anger that she could no longer overpower this strange, mutated human. The system was equally shocked. It never expected that Levi would immediately unleash a third-class destructive fire source the moment the battle began, knowing the demon armor was formed from a spirit beast's power. Levi swung his fist again, releasing the blazing third-class destructive fire as he launched another fierce attack toward Zoe. Zoe's eyes widened in horror as Levi rushed toward her again, his movements becoming even faster than before. What frightened her the most was realizing that the flames from this man's attacks could even destroy her spiritual avatar. Sensing the deadly danger closing in, she quickly dodged sideways to avoid the incoming strike. When she looked back, she discovered that her spiritual avatar had already melted under the terrifying heat of Levi's flames. The next discovery horrified her even more. She could no longer recreate the destroyed avatar. Levi looked at her with a mocking expression, calmly noting that she was now unable to rebuild her illusory body. For the first time in her life, Zoe felt genuine fear toward a human. The flames in his hands could suppress her beast-like abilities. Furious and unwilling to accept this, she demanded to know who he really was. Levi simply replied in a calm tone that even he himself did not know the answer to that question. Too many years had passed, he said, and he had long since forgotten his true identity. Yet just by observing Zoe, he could clearly tell that her condition was already extremely serious. His words only deepened Zoe's panic. Although her species was rare and powerful, she knew she could not compete with the mysterious force controlling this human body. Worse still, the man had already realized she was heavily injured and poisoned. Levi smiled faintly and added that this fool's spiritual world could be sealed by force, meaning the ancient divine fire arts he possessed were far beyond her ability to resist. The system heard Levi speaking inside his mind and was stunned that he knew so much. Levi casually replied that he had no memory of who he truly was, but if the system could explain it to him later, he would appreciate it. The system immediately exploded with anger, demanding to know why it should explain anything to him. It insisted that this strange consciousness return Levi's body at once. Even the original host, though mentally unstable, was far more tolerable than this unknown presence. Just as the system continued scolding him furiously, it suddenly fell silent. Levi's hand had somehow grasped its essence directly. Faced with this unexpected threat, the system was completely stunned and lost all of its usual dignity. Standing slightly to the side, Jasper tilted his head with curiosity and asked who Levi had been muttering to just now. Levi casually explained that he had been holding a private conversation with a tiny creature, one that might actually help the real Levi grow much stronger in the future. Jasper listened calmly and nodded without hesitation. He simply said that if this mysterious creature could help Levi become stronger, then he would definitely like it as well. Levi's golden eyes turned cold as he stared directly at Zoe. In a calm but threatening tone, he asked her if she truly wished to continue fighting. He warned her that if she stubbornly refused to retreat and insisted on harming the people here, he would have no choice but to end her life. Zoe showed no sign of fear. Even though a hint of caution appeared in her eyes as she looked at the strange man before her, she firmly declared that these humans deserved to die. After all, they had ignored her warnings, invaded the city, and even dared to rescue that troublesome man. She swore that she would never allow that hateful person to escape with the dangerous object he carried. Even if it meant risking her own life, she would stop him. If these humans managed to escape, the entire demonic beast kingdom could fall into catastrophic danger. Levi's voice turned even colder as he asked Zoe if she had grown tired of living and wanted to throw her life away. Instead of answering his question, Zoe chose to act. In her mind, there was no other choice. If she backed down now, she would become a traitor to her own kind. As Zoe's voice echoed through the air, A massive red net suddenly appeared and spread outward, trapping everyone within its glowing web. Levi and Jasper looked down in shock as the ground beneath their feet cracked open. The earth split apart and swallowed them, dragging them into a seemingly bottomless abyss. Levi quickly realized what had happened. Zoe had used the primordial soul orb without hesitation, proving that she was prepared to fight them to the very end. As they fell through the darkness, Levi noticed Jasper tumbling downward in panic. Without hesitation, Levi stretched out his hand toward him and urgently called for Jasper to grab hold. Levi managed to catch Jasper's hand firmly and pulled him closer. While doing so, he told Zoe coldly that she should feel lucky he had chosen to spare her life for the moment. Realizing time was running out, Levi quickly began explaining to Jasper how someone could enter another person's primordial soul vision, a strange realm where primordial souls devoured one another. Although Zoe's cultivation within the primordial soul realm was still relatively weak, Levi himself lacked the ability to absorb other primordial souls. Because of this limitation, they would eventually have to escape and return. Jasper stared at him blankly, completely stunned and unable to understand any of what Levi had just explained. Levi reassured his friend calmly, saying that no matter what happened, he would continue protecting Jasper. He even added that he believed he had chosen the right person to protect. At that exact moment, a notification sounded inside Levi's mind. Control was returning. The mysterious residual consciousness released its grip on the host's body and slowly sank deep into Levi's subconscious, falling into a long sleep. When the system began analyzing the strange consciousness hidden within Levi's subconscious, it discovered something shocking. It was actually a fragment of Levi's original soul. By the time Levi and Jasper finally landed, the system had already suffered several violent psychic attacks. Its processing core was badly damaged and forced into temporary maintenance mode, causing Levi's spiritual world to shut down while his normal consciousness awakened. Jasper noticed something strange happening. Levi's hair, which had turned white earlier, was slowly changing back to its normal black color. When Levi suddenly opened his eyes and looked around in confusion, Jasper's face lit up with joy as he recognized that the real Levi had finally returned. Still stunned by the bizarre situation, Levi suddenly noticed a giant ant rushing toward them. Reacting instantly, he grabbed Jasper and rolled across the ground to avoid the attack. Zoe's furious voice echoed through the dark realm, declaring that no one had ever escaped alive from her domain beneath the blood moon. Levi looked up toward the sky and saw a massive crimson moon glowing ominously. Zoe arrogantly declared that within this primordial soul realm, she possessed endless strength and commanded countless ants, making her completely invincible. Jasper stared upward in shock as a massive swarm of giant ants began raining down from the sky like a living storm. Levi held Jasper tightly and moved swiftly left and right, dodging the relentless attacks of the monstrous ants. He maneuvered carefully between the creatures, weaving through the chaos while avoiding their crushing limbs. Suddenly, one enormous ant landed directly in front of them, blocking Levi's path forward. Without hesitation, Levi struck the creature aside with brute force, sending it crashing away. Moments later, the two finally reached a small open area where the swarm had not yet closed in. Levi moved quickly, carrying Jasper with him as he searched for a safer position. For a brief moment, they managed to catch their breath and regain their bearings. Levi stepped forward protectively and raised his hands, summoning fierce crimson flames that began swirling around his palms. The giant ants that lunged toward them were instantly burned and fried by the blazing heat. Suddenly, Levi condensed the fiery power and slammed his fist hard into the ground. The impact released a massive ring of flames that spread outward across the earth. The expanding firestorm instantly incinerated the swarm of giant ants surrounding them. Watching the display, Zoe admitted that Levi was indeed powerful. However, she reminded him that within this realm, he could never destroy her true form. With a cold laugh, she sent yet another swarm of ants charging toward them. Levi responded mercilessly, striking down each attacking creature without hesitation. Zoe watched as wave after wave of ants surrounded the two humans, yet still failed to kill them. Burned by Levi's flames, countless insects dropped lifelessly to the ground, Even so, Zoel continued speaking confidently, insisting that the humans would never be able to defeat her. Soon, an entirely new swarm of ants closed in around Levi and Jasper again. A fierce and angry glint flashed across Levi's eyes as he faced the endless enemies. Inside Levi's consciousness, the system began screaming angrily, complaining that the fragment of the original soul inside the host was acting beyond its authority and declaring itself the most useless system imaginable. Suddenly, a loud alarm rang out. The host was in danger, and the system itself faced possible destruction. The processing center ordered the system to actively assist the host and turn this crisis into an opportunity for growth. Instantly fired up, the system loudly proclaimed that it was fearless and determined to help its host become the strongest being. Meanwhile, the ants swarmed over Levi's body, piling up around him and forming a writhing mound of living creatures. At that moment, Levi summoned a level 4 Geo-Fire, uncertain what the outcome of such power would be. Soon afterward, a third-level green flame appeared in his hand. Levi hoped this destructive fire could wipe out the entire swarm in a single strike. Panting heavily from exhaustion, Levi turned around, only to realize Jasper was nowhere in sight. He shouted Jasper's name desperately and began sweeping the battlefield with waves of blazing green fire. To his shock, Jasper was sitting quietly in the center of the swarm, wearing an oddly calm expression as he softly called Levi's name. After saying those words, Jasper suddenly collapsed onto the ground. Levi immediately rushed forward to catch him. Jasper lay weakly in Levi's arms, and the two could only call each other's names as they struggled to speak. Jasper murmured that his body hurt terribly, causing Levi's face to turn pale with worry. Levi clenched his teeth as anger flared within him again. He immediately summoned more flames, and the ants shrank back in fear when they saw the swirling green fire. Seeing the terrifying tornado of flames, the ants hesitated to approach, clearly aware that the fire could suppress their beast abilities. By now, many of the ants had already been completely destroyed by Levi's relentless flames. However, Levi unleashed a raging tornado that tore through the battlefield like a furious storm. The violent wind ripped across the ground, scattering dirt and debris while sweeping away wave after wave of attacking ants. When the whirlwind finally faded, the ground behind it was littered with countless shattered ant bodies. At that moment, the system's mechanical voice suddenly echoed inside Levi's mind. It calmly announced that the system had successfully rebooted and was now in the process of loading its core functions in order to restore full operational capability. The system let out something that sounded almost like a tired sigh. It noted that the connection had only been interrupted for about 5 minutes. Yet during that short span, Levi and Jasper had already gone through an incredible amount of suffering and danger. Looking at everything that had happened, it became painfully obvious that Levi truly could not function without the assistance of the system. Without its guidance and support, many of the life-threatening situations he faced would have been impossible for him to overcome alone. Soon after reconnecting, the system detected a notification showing that a huge amount of energy value had accumulated inside the host's body. By purifying and clearing this energy, it could unlock a hidden internal store containing medicinal preparations, powerful enhancement drugs with special effects, and even rare artifacts that could be purchased using this stored energy. Technically, the host had the right to either approve or reject the opening of this store. However, the system sensed that Levi's mind was currently shaken and distracted by the ongoing battle, so it quietly made the optimal choice on his behalf and completed the exchange process without disturbing him. The accumulated energy inside Levi's body was purified and reorganized by the system. As the process completed, the internal store was officially unlocked and became accessible for use. Without wasting time, the system immediately spent 1% of the host's physical energy. Using that cost, it purchased a specialized medicine designed to treat severe injuries and rapidly restore damaged bodies. After Jasper swallowed the medicine, the effect was almost miraculous. His wounds closed completely in moments, and the pain vanished from his body. Excited and relieved, he quickly showed Levi that he had fully recovered and that his body no longer hurt at all. Inside his mind, Levi gratefully thanked the system again and again. He even muttered that without this divine intelligence, Jasper would have surely died earlier. Hearing Levi praise it like some heavenly being made the system feel both awkward and slightly on the verge of losing its composure. Jasper noticed Levi's gloomy expression and growing frustration. Levi kept blaming himself for failing to protect his closest friend and kept calling himself useless. Watching this behavior left Jasper completely confused about why Levi was being so hard on himself. At that exact moment, the system spoke again in Levi's mind. It asked him a direct question, whether he truly wanted to grow stronger and eventually become the most powerful man in the entire world. Now that Levi had fully entered the system's domain, the system spoke with confidence. It told him that from this moment forward, he should trust her completely. As a powerful system, she promised with absolute certainty that she would guide Levi until he became the strongest person in the world. Just then, something strange suddenly happened beneath their feet. The once solid ground cracked loudly, and enormous fractures spread outward, splitting the earth apart right under Levi and Jasper. Zoe's furious voice echoed through the surroundings. She angrily declared that these arrogant humans actually believed they could defeat her simply by slaughtering her ants and suppressing her beast-like power. With cold confidence, she proclaimed that she was an invincible existence. No matter what they tried, she insisted that they would never be capable of destroying her. Suddenly, Levi and Jasper realized with horror what was happening. The ground beneath them had completely collapsed, and they were now falling helplessly into a deep, dark abyss below. Seeing the danger, the system instantly activated an S-rank defensive response. Levi grabbed Jasper tightly with one arm, while desperately reaching out with the other, catching hold of the rough stone wall to slow their terrifying fall. The system urgently warned Levi that the rock walls around them were slowly closing in. If nothing changed, the tightening stone would eventually crush both of them. The massive crack in the ground began to seal itself rapidly. With every passing second, the gap narrowed faster and faster. At the same time, enormous chunks of rock broke loose from the cliffs above. Those huge stones tumbled downward, crashing toward the two boys as they struggled inside the collapsing fissure. Levi stretched his arms and legs outward as far as possible. Using his entire body, he pushed against the rock walls in a desperate effort to stop them from closing in and crushing them. The system tried to calm him down. It told Levi to trust it completely, assuring him that with its support and guidance, neither he nor Jasper would die in this situation. Then the system quickly explained what Levi needed to do. It instructed him to carefully control his reserved physical energy, channeling it continuously into his palms and concentrating every bit of strength into his hands. A tense 10-second countdown immediately began. When the count reached 5 seconds, the system deliberately paused the voice announcement so that Levi would not lose focus during such a critical moment. The system then suggested another emergency measure. It offered to temporarily transfer Jasper into a safer form and use 1% of the host's physical energy to exchange for a special vial of medicine. Levi quickly decided that it was necessary. The system completed the exchange at once, deducting the required physical energy from the host to obtain the item. Even though it felt slightly dissatisfied about the energy cost, the system still helped Jasper drink the medicine as quickly as possible so that the next step could begin. Using its power, the system then shrank Jasper's body down to a much smaller and safer size. This greatly reduced the burden on Levi and also made it easier for Jasper to avoid potential enemy attacks. It also reminded Levi to firmly hold onto the choker around his neck. This would prevent Jasper from falling away while allowing Levi to move freely and fight the demon without worry. Levi gently comforted Jasper, speaking in a calm voice. He promised that he would protect him no matter what happened and told him to hold tightly onto the ring hanging around his neck. Once the countdown resumed, the system finally unlocked a new technique, an Earth-level energy cultivation skill that Levi could immediately use. Levi quickly applied this new technique. By channeling the newly unlocked energy, he forced the surrounding rock walls to stop closing in further. Taking advantage of that brief opening, Levi kicked off the falling rocks and used their momentum. With a powerful leap, he pushed himself upward and shot back toward the surface. When Zoel saw Levi emerge alive, she growled angrily. In disbelief, She declared that there was no way her technique should have failed to kill him. Then Levi noticed something approaching. A giant stone statue that Zoel had summoned was now marching toward them with heavy, terrifying steps. The system urged Levi to charge forward without hesitation. Gathering his strength and releasing 6 blazing flames, Levi rushed ahead and smashed the enormous statue into pieces. As Levi collided with the stone statue, the system immediately reminded him to gather his energy at a single point and deliver a devastating strike. Following that advice, Levi summoned a brilliant green flame around his body. Wrapped in that burning aura, he dashed straight toward the massive stone golem. Their attacks clashed violently in midair. Seeing the outcome, Zoe was left completely speechless, staring in shock at what had just happened. Levi crushed the statue's hands with overwhelming force. Moments later, cracks spread across the giant structure until the entire statue began breaking apart and collapsing into fragments. Suddenly, a small piece of rock shot past them at terrifying speed. The projectile barely missed Jasper, and for a brief moment it seemed like he had almost been killed. Furious at her failure, Zoe unleashed another demonic ability called Heavenly Raging Fire. With terrifying power, she summoned a storm of meteors that rained down toward Levi. Levi narrowed his eyes and focused completely. His attention locked onto Zoe's incoming attack as he carefully prepared to counter it. Inside Levi's mind, a system interface suddenly appeared. It showed that his level 3 demonic fire skill had reached 60% progress, automatically unlocking the full level 3 ability. Instantly, blazing flames erupted around Levi's entire body. The powerful fire shield expanded outward, forcefully pushing away the demon's falling meteor attack. Zoel stared in amazement as Levi blocked her powerful attack with a single move. She had never expected that Levi could possess such immense strength, especially within this spiritual world where her own power was supposed to be supreme. Confused and suspicious, she asked whether Levi had somehow obtained the power of a master. The system calmly informed Levi that his strength had indeed reached the level of a master, and even though he was technically one stage lower, the difference in authority was enormous. The innate power of a continental-ranked demon was not enough to suppress such dominance. If the host will remain strong and unshaken, he could easily subdue a beast like Zoe. Zoe could hardly believe what she was hearing. According to the information she possessed, there should no longer be any experts of master level left anywhere in the world. Jasper suddenly noticed that rain was falling from the sky. Levi gently explained that he feared the meteor shower might harm Jasper, so he had temporarily transformed him and merged him into the rain for protection. Hearing Levi's explanation made Zoe feel a chill run down her spine. She began to wonder in horror whether this man truly possessed the terrifying power of a ruler. Zoel suddenly remembered an ancient incident from 200 years ago. At that time, a terrifying lord known as the Lord of the Locusts had appeared among the demons. That demonic ruler had led vast armies of beasts. Under his command, human fortresses across the land were destroyed one after another. Wherever that ruler traveled, devastation followed. Cities burned, and mountains of human corpses were left behind in his wake. However, when he eventually attacked the nation of Lungo, the demons there encountered an unexpectedly fierce resistance from its defenders. At the most critical moment of that battle, a powerful expert known as Lord Bayun suddenly appeared. Using his own body as a catalyst, he sacrificed himself to suppress the overwhelming demonic forces. Ancient records from 200 years ago stated that humanity once had 5 overlord-level experts guarding the 5 strongest nations. But now everyone knew the truth. No such experts remained in Lungo anymore. Zoel coldly stated that even if Levi truly possessed the power of a ruler, she admitted she might not be able to destroy him. However, she could still trap both him and Jasper inside her spirit world forever. With a mocking laugh, she declared that within this world she was completely invincible. No matter how powerful Levi was, he would never escape the fate of being imprisoned there until the day he died. Smiling cruelly, she even asked what he would like to eat as his final meal. The system quietly reminded Levi that the key to escaping this strange spiritual realm was the blood moon hanging above. If he could somehow shatter that eerie red moon, the entire illusion would collapse, and he would finally be able to leave this suffocating world behind. Watching Levi repeatedly strike at the blood moon with fierce determination, the evil creature showed no sign of panic. Instead, she almost looked amused. She calmly pointed out that the power sustaining this realm came directly from the moon itself. Even if Levi had figured that out, what difference could it possibly make? With a mocking tone, she asked Levi if he truly understood the distance between himself and the crescent moon above. Shaking her head slightly, she sneered and called him foolish, as though he had no idea how impossible his attempt really was. She went on to explain that even dominant-level beasts, creatures far stronger than ordinary fighters, had once stepped into her crescent realm, yet none of them had ever found a way to escape. According to her, the fate of every powerful human who entered this place had always been the same. In the end, they all had only one outcome waiting for them: to be buried forever within this silent spiritual domain. She explained that the path leading deeper into this realm was tied directly to human desires. The stronger a person's greed, ambition, or hidden lust became, the farther away the crescent moon would drift from them, making escape nearly impossible. For many years, she had carefully cultivated and strengthened this strange domain. During all that time, not a single human warrior or demonic beast had ever succeeded in breaking through the boundaries of her crescent moon realm. Seeing Levi behaving so strangely, constantly staring upward and attacking the sky, Jasper frowned in confusion. He hesitantly asked whether Levi was actually planning to attack the moon itself. The system quickly responded, stating that striking the moon in the sky should be impossible under normal circumstances. Jasper relayed this warning to Levi. At the same time, the system admitted it could not accurately measure the distance between Levi and the crescent moon, though it strangely hinted that Levi might still have a chance. Jasper stared at Levi and asked what exactly he was seeing. Was someone speaking inside his head? Levi calmly explained that a mysterious voice had appeared in his mind, promising that if he trusted it, he could grow stronger, and that striking the moon would no longer be an impossible task. The system urged Levi to release his internal energy and attempt a breakthrough into the heavenly realm. If he succeeded, the system claimed he could reach a height comparable to the crescent moon itself. Trusting the voice without hesitation, Levi immediately followed the instructions. The system continued encouraging him, reminding him that his cultivation in the Earth realm had been stagnant for nearly a month. This moment was his chance. He had to break through now. But even with this plan, solving the crescent moon problem was far from easy. The system itself struggled to understand the demon's strange abilities. It still could not calculate the real distance between Levi and the moon hanging high in the sky. Then, to the system's complete shock, something unbelievable happened. Levi actually managed to strike the crescent moon with his attack. Feeling her true form being hit directly, Zoelle cried out in disbelief. Her voice was filled with shock as she wondered how something like this could possibly happen. As Levi slowly descended back toward the ground, cracks began spreading across the crescent moon above. The fractures widened again and again until the moon finally shattered into countless glowing fragments. With the destruction of the moon, the entire spiritual illusion collapsed. Levi had completely broken the false world surrounding them. Zol's condition immediately worsened. Her body trembled violently as she coughed up mouthfuls of blood again and again. She stared ahead in disbelief, unable to accept what had just happened. For countless years, no one had ever managed to destroy her spiritual sphere. When Levi stepped forward and appeared before her, Zoelle slowly admitted the truth. His mental strength had surpassed her own. With a bitter smile, she acknowledged her defeat and said that he should be proud. He was the first person in over 1,000 years to force her to admit defeat. She added that even dominant-level demonic beasts had never pushed her to such a point. Looking at Levi carefully, she admitted that he was truly a formidable opponent. After Jasper excitedly praised Levi for destroying the moon, Levi simply shrugged and explained that he had only succeeded because he followed the mysterious instructions of the voice inside his head. Once Levi shattered Zol's spiritual sphere, the rooster was the first among them to wake up from the illusion. At the same time, the system warned that the owner's accumulated energy and stored internal power had been completely drained and would need time to recover. One by one, The others around them began freeing themselves from the spiritual restraints as well. Unfortunately, even the system admitted that it had no clear solution for helping Levi break through his current limits. The dazed Valerio suddenly opened his eyes. As his senses returned, he heard a familiar voice nearby, his sister calling his name. Everything he had just experienced suddenly felt unreal. The horrifying scene he remembered had only been an illusion. His sister Vivian was still alive. With trembling fingers, Valerio slowly reached out and touched his sister's face, desperately confirming that she was truly alive and standing in front of him. Vivian gently held her brother's hand and pressed it softly against her cheek. With a calm voice, she reassured him not to be afraid. When Valerio saw his sister calmly using her healing abilities on herself, he finally allowed himself to believe that everything before had only been a cruel illusion and that she had truly survived. Unable to hold back his emotions any longer, tears filled Valerio's eyes. Relief and happiness overwhelmed him as he realized his sister had survived. But the moment of relief also triggered painful memories buried deep in his heart. Memories from his tragic childhood. He remembered one stormy night long ago when their small village was suddenly attacked by a terrifying wave of demonic beasts. During the chaos, his mother had thrown herself forward to protect him, suffering terrible wounds while shielding him from danger. Before taking her final breath, she had looked at him with gentle eyes and told him to live well and fight for a better life. Now, grinding his teeth silently, Valerio forced himself to stay calm. He repeated in his mind that everything happening here was just an illusion and that nothing would change his goals. Nearby, two small demons anxiously hovered around their injured queen. Seeing their concern, Zoel weakly told them that she was fine. Suddenly, a sharp thorned whip cracked through the air with a violent strike. One of the small demons screamed urgently, warning Her Majesty to be careful. At that critical instant, the small creature threw itself forward without hesitation, using its own body to shield the queen from the deadly attack. Everything happened in the blink of an eye. By the time Zoel turned around to react, it was already too late to stop what had begun. Seeing Zoel rushing toward him with murderous intent, Valerio let out a low, furious growl. With cold determination, he swung his blackthorn whip through the air. The brutal strike landed heavily, forcing Zoel to spit out even more blood. Her body collapsed backward onto the ground. After the destruction of the Crescent Moon Kingdom, her injuries had already become far too severe, leaving her with almost no strength left to continue fighting. Valerio raised the thorn whip once more, aiming directly for Zol's head. Yet the small demon stepped forward again, ignoring the danger and preparing to take the blow in her place. Zoel could only shout helplessly, begging Valerio not to harm them. A horrifying sound followed as the barbed whip tore through flesh. Zoel froze in place, staring blankly ahead as warm blood splashed across her face. At the most dangerous moment, two powerful hands suddenly grabbed the thorn whip mid-swing. The rooster had stepped in and blocked Valerio's attack just in time, shielding the small creature behind him while roaring angrily that he could not tolerate this any longer. Valerio remained calm and cold. He said demons would always remain demons. Then he accused the rooster of finally revealing his true nature and completely betraying his master. The rooster said nothing for a moment. A strange, unreadable expression slowly appeared on his face. Then he suddenly hissed and admitted there was no betrayal at all, because he had never truly been loyal to Levi in the first place. His anger rose as he declared that he was a demonic beast and that creatures like him could never be loyal to humans. Mateo and Lion were stunned when they heard the rooster openly confess that he had been acting as a spy. The rooster continued speaking proudly, claiming he had been the perfect spy all along. In his mind, he was destined to become a hero admired by every demonic beast for killing humans. Hearing this arrogant confession, Valerio burst out laughing. He said he had known from the very beginning that the rooster was an enemy of humanity. Valerio loudly reminded everyone present that they had all just heard the demonic beast admit that he was a spy who had never been loyal to humans. With a cold voice, he declared that Levi had come here to save people, not to protect demonic beasts. Meanwhile, the spy hiding beside them had secretly helped his own kind the entire time. Pointing angrily at the rooster, Valerio declared that the creature deserved nothing less than death. The rooster quickly realized that Valerio knew about the thorn poison affecting him and was trying to use the moment to convince everyone else to attack together. He feared that Levi and the others might actually unite and destroy him right here. Running away was impossible now. Yet he also could not bear the thought of watching his brothers die helplessly. Just as tension reached its peak, Levi suddenly stepped forward. To everyone's surprise, he directly refuted Valerio's accusations and declared that he would not allow anyone to harm the rooster. Valerio stared at Levi in disbelief and shouted angrily. The rooster had just admitted he was a spy and had never been loyal, yet Levi still intended to protect him in front of everyone. Levi simply stood there, thinking quietly to himself. He genuinely had no idea what Valerio was talking about. The rooster stood completely still, his body stiff with disbelief, as if he could hardly trust what he had just heard. Levi spoke with firm determination, openly declaring that it did not matter to him whether the rooster was a spy or not. In Levi's eyes, the only thing that mattered was the simple truth that the rooster had once helped him when he needed it. Because of that single act, Levi calmly but resolutely promised that he would stand by the rooster and protect him no matter what others might think or say. Levi continued speaking in a steady voice, assuring the rooster that he would never allow Valerio, or anyone else, to harm him under any circumstances. No matter how suspicious others might be, Levi made it clear that he would personally shield the rooster from danger. Hearing those words of sincere protection, the rooster's eyes grew moist, and he nearly burst into tears, deeply moved by Levi's unexpected kindness. Not far away, Valerio's face darkened with anger as he listened to the conversation. A low growl escaped his throat as frustration boiled inside him. In his mind, he couldn't understand what had gotten into them. Had they all lost their senses? Or had they simply forgotten that they were human beings, siding instead with something that might very well be their enemy? Just as the tension thickened in the air, a clear female voice suddenly rang out from nearby. Her tone carried both authority and sharp defiance as she declared without hesitation that Valerio had absolutely no right to speak on behalf of humanity. The woman stepped forward, revealing herself to be Serenity. Her expression was filled with anger and disappointment as she looked directly at Valerio. With a sharp voice, she demanded to know whether he felt even the slightest bit of regret for what had happened, especially considering that his actions had nearly led to the complete destruction of the city. Leon and Mateo exchanged puzzled glances before turning towards Serenity in confusion. They couldn't quite follow what she was saying. Hesitantly, they asked her what she meant by the city being almost destroyed, pointing out that from what they could see, the city had already been completely ruined. Serenity took a deep breath and began explaining the truth behind the incident. She revealed that the Ant Queen had secretly manipulated the minds of all the warriors who had entered the city, controlling them like puppets. Not only that, but the Queen had also secretly recorded the horrifying torture video that had later spread panic and chaos. Despite the terrifying situation, Serenity explained that in the end, the Ant Queen had still accepted a certain proposal. Because of that agreement, the Queen had finally stopped harming both the captured warriors and the ordinary people who were still trapped inside the city. Eventually, Zoel made a decision. After careful consideration, he agreed to allow Serenity to assist the demons in searching for a possible antidote, something that might help counter the terrible effects spreading among them. However, the very mention of that medicine caused Vivian's entire body to tremble uncontrollably. Just hearing its name brought back painful memories that she had tried desperately to forget. In her mind, she suddenly saw the scene from years ago, as if it were happening again. She remembered arriving in the city only to discover her parents lying motionless on the ground, their lifeless bodies surrounded by the corpses of savage demonic beasts. Faced with such a devastating memory, Vivian felt completely lost. Her mind was filled with confusion and grief, and she had no idea what she was supposed to do next. Overwhelmed by sorrow, she could do nothing but sit there helplessly as tears streamed down her face. The pain in her heart felt so heavy that she couldn't even find the strength to stand. At that moment, her brother suddenly appeared beside her. Without saying anything at first, he gently placed his hand on Vivian's head and softly stroked her hair, trying to comfort her in the quietest way possible. Valerio spoke to his younger sister in a calm but determined voice, telling her not to cry anymore. He promised her that he would one day kill every single demonic beast responsible for their suffering and avenge the deaths of their parents. From that moment on, Valerio carried a burning determination deep inside his heart. He swore that he would one day wipe out all demonic beasts from existence, leaving not a single one alive in the world. In order to accomplish that goal, Valerio began thinking about creating a special kind of poison, something powerful enough to make demonic beasts disappear entirely. Smiling faintly, he reminded Vivian that she had once taught him English, and because of that he decided to give the poison an English name. He called it the Demon Extermination Disaster, or DEED for short. After listening carefully to Serenity's explanation in the present, Vivian nervously asked her brother whether it was truly possible for him to successfully research something like the bid. Mateo and Leon looked at each other again, clearly confused by the strange term that had just been mentioned. Neither of them had any idea what this so-called bid actually was supposed to be. Unable to follow the conversation any longer, Levi finally spoke up and asked them to clearly explain what exactly they were talking about. Serenity continued her explanation, her expression growing serious as she spoke. She admitted that when Valerio first began his research, she had actually supported him wholeheartedly. However, as time passed, she gradually discovered that the true direction of his research was very different from what he had originally claimed. She recalled the day when her superiors had officially ordered her to assist Valerio in the city. When she first met him, she greeted him warmly as a respected expert and even expressed how happy she was that someone with his talent had come to help. During that first meeting, Serenity had enthusiastically suggested that the two of them work together to defend the city and protect its people. Valerio had replied politely, saying that in the future he would probably have to rely on her help quite a lot. Serenity had laughed and waved away his politeness, telling him there was no need for such formal words. After all, she reminded him that as the city's first military instructor, supporting the mission and protecting the city was exactly what she was supposed to do. At the time, Valerio had explained that he was developing a special kind of treatment designed specifically for demonic beasts. If the experiment succeeded, he said, it would become a temporary paralyzing spray capable of immobilizing those creatures during combat. Serenity, who admittedly had little knowledge about medical science, felt optimistic when she heard that explanation. She believed such a tool would greatly help the entry-level experts who struggled when facing demonic beasts. Valerio calmly added that he could focus entirely on his research while Serenity managed the many responsibilities of their special department within the city. Serenity gladly accepted that arrangement without hesitation. She encouraged Valerio to devote his full attention to the research, promising that she would do her absolute best to handle everything else on their side. From that day onward, Valerio spent nearly all of his time inside the research room. Progress was painfully slow, partly because Serenity could only provide limited materials. The problem was complicated by the incredible variety among demonic beasts. Their abilities, biology, and characteristics were all different, making the creation of a universal cure seem almost impossible. However, when the intelligence of demonic beasts began to increase, it unexpectedly appeared to push the research closer to a major breakthrough. Every now and then, Serenity would quietly peek into the research room from the doorway. Almost every time she did, she saw the same scene. Valerio tirelessly working without rest, completely absorbed in his experiments. One day, Serenity happened to enter Valerio's private restroom area. When she pressed the control panel to open the door, a cold mechanical voice informed her that the highest level of authorization was required. She stared at the panel in confusion, wondering why on earth Valerio would restrict access to a restroom with such an extreme security level. Her curiosity grew stronger by the second. Eventually, unable to hold herself back any longer, Serenity used her higher authorization clearance to unlock the door and step inside. At first, she assumed that perhaps Valerio had simply converted the restroom into a temporary office space so he could work more conveniently during long nights of research. But when Serenity actually entered the room, she was surprised by what she saw. Valerio was sitting at his desk, fast asleep, clearly exhausted from overworking himself. Serenity quietly walked over and gently draped her cloak over his shoulders so he wouldn't feel cold. As she looked at his sleeping face, she suddenly remembered that this boy was only 18 years old. In truth, he was still just a kid, yet he had already pushed himself to the point of complete exhaustion. At that moment, she silently decided that she needed to make sure he started taking better care of his health. Just as she was about to leave, Serenity noticed that Valerio's computer was still powered on. Thinking she should turn it off to let him rest properly, she glanced at the screen, only to suddenly freeze when she noticed the lines of text displayed there. The report on the screen clearly stated that every form of energy used during experiments on demonic beasts produced an extremely lethal type of toxicity. Even worse, the document explained that this toxic effect could spread rapidly and eliminate all life forms that carried the same energy signature. The terrifying project had been given a chilling code name: the Demon Extermination Disaster. Serenity was still staring at the screen in shock when she suddenly heard Valerio's voice behind her. His expression was dark and cold as he slowly asked how long she had been inside the room, and more importantly, exactly what she had seen. Anger immediately rose in Serenity's chest. She demanded to know what Valerio was really trying to accomplish, pointing out that his current research was completely different from the harmless paralyzing spray he had mentioned earlier. Valerio answered calmly, almost indifferently. Since she had already seen everything, there was no point in hiding it anymore. He admitted openly that he was actually developing a deadly toxin designed to completely wipe out all demonic creatures. Serenity's face instantly turned pale as the terrifying implications sank in. She argued that many demonic beasts possessed natural abilities related to toxins or antidotes, meaning such research might never succeed. Worse still, even if the medicine were successfully created, it would almost certainly lead to massive consequences. But Valerio simply shrugged calmly. In fact, he said that the more impossible the research appeared, the more fascinated he became by it. To him, the reality was simple. Every single day, countless people were being killed by demonic beasts. The relationship between humans and those creatures had always been one of pure life and death struggle. If a cure existed that could decisively end the lives of those beasts, Valerio saw absolutely nothing wrong with using it. His ultimate goal was clear: the complete destruction of all demonic beasts. In his mind, a world without them would finally allow humanity to live without constant fear. Valerio continued explaining that his research was meant to improve human lives. In his view, eliminating demonic beasts entirely would finally bring lasting peace to humanity, freeing people from the daily risk of dying while fighting those monsters. Serenity firmly rejected his reasoning. To her, this research was nothing short of a disaster waiting to happen. If humanity followed such a path, she believed the consequences would eventually come back to haunt them. She argued that as demonic beasts grew more intelligent, humans and beasts might one day learn to coexist peacefully. Valerio's temper suddenly flared at those words. With visible anger, he demanded to know whether Serenity truly believed humans should coexist with those monsters. He reminded her that demonic beasts were naturally stronger than humans, and if their intelligence continued to grow, they would only become even more dangerous. In his mind, the future she imagined would only end one way, with humans eventually becoming nothing more than prey hunted down by those powerful creatures. But Serenity refused to back down. She insisted that true peace for humanity could never be built on something as cruel as a deadly infectious weapon. Instead, she believed that as demonic beasts evolved, humanity would also continue to grow stronger in response. As proof of humanity's potential, she pointed out the existence of gifted experts and elite special forces who constantly protected society. According to Serenity, science, technology, faith, human compassion, and the will to protect others would never allow humanity to simply become weak victims. Valerio looked at her coldly and asked a simple question. If there was a shortcut that could solve the problem once and for all, why shouldn't they take it? He wondered aloud how many more innocent people would lose their lives to demonic beasts if humanity simply waited and left everything to slow, uncertain evolution. To Valerio, if his extinction research succeeded, it would ultimately save countless human lives in the long run. Serenity argued fiercely that interfering with natural evolution could trigger catastrophic consequences. Valerio responded casually, saying he didn't see why he needed to worry about that. After all, he reminded her, Earth wasn't the only planet in the universe. There were countless others where humanity could move if necessary. Hearing such an outrageous idea, Serenity finally lost her patience. She shouted angrily at Valerio, unable to believe the madness behind his thinking. She told him clearly that he had no right to decide the fate of an entire race and demanded that he stop this extreme research immediately. Valerio slowly turned his cold gaze towards Serenity, staring at her as if he had just heard something unbelievable. His eyes gradually turned red with anger as memories flooded back into his mind. The horrifying moment when demonic beasts had killed his parents. That painful memory hardened his heart, and he swore again that he would make those creatures disappear from the world forever. Serenity was left stunned by his words. At that moment, she realized that Valerio's mind had already been consumed by hatred. She knew she had to report everything to headquarters so they could stop him. But before she could act, darkness suddenly filled her vision. Just before losing consciousness, she realized the person who attacked her was Valerio himself. When Serenity finally regained consciousness, she found herself lying in a hospital bed. She quickly realized that she could neither move her limbs nor speak a single word. It turned out that Valerio had secretly injected her with a special drug that temporarily paralyzed her body. To hide the truth, he told everyone outside that Serenity had accidentally been exposed to experimental chemicals inside the research room. According to the official explanation, Serenity simply needed to rest for a while and remain hospitalized for treatment until the effects of the drug wore off. After Serenity revealed the truth about his hidden experiments, Valerio's expression darkened with anger. He coldly insisted that there was absolutely nothing wrong with what he had done. In his eyes, every action he took was justified because it was all for the survival and future of humanity. To him, sacrifices were inevitable in a war between humans and demonic beasts. Hearing her brother speak with such frightening conviction, Vivian's face turned pale as if the blood had drained from it. Serenity, on the other hand, was furious. She demanded to know whether Valerio truly believed that acting for humanity meant abandoning all principles and moral limits. With a sharp voice, she pressed him further, asking what other terrible things he had done behind the scenes, and whether he had the courage to confess those crimes in front of his own sister. Valerio's eyes grew colder and darker as he slowly turned his gaze towards Serenity. The anger burning in his stare was obvious, and the tension between them thickened as if the air itself had grown heavy. At that moment, memories suddenly flashed through Valerio's mind. He recalled the day he had tested his combat strength on the specialized measuring equipment at headquarters, standing alone inside the testing chamber while the machines evaluated his power. During that test, Valerio had realized something important. If the system officially determined that his strength had reached the continental rank, headquarters would never allow him to leave freely. Instead, they would keep him in the capital under strict supervision. When the monitor displayed results showing that Valerio's combat value had already risen to the level of a continental rank expert, he secretly manipulated the test. Using a clever trick, he altered the result so the equipment would register his strength as merely national rank instead.